this episode is about age and how it ties in with the risks of dementia, but also how can you tell the difference between something that's happening in someone who's just simply getting old, or someone who is getting old but also developing dementia. So we need to look at the issues and the reasons that might sit behind things that we've discovered them doing. So if you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, something like that, then dementia is something that, as far as you're concerned, is like light years into the future. And you don't need to consider yourself worrying about it for yourself. However, if you're watching this and listening to me talking, then there must be something that's drawn you here for that information. You're here because you care. We know that the population is getting older due to the NHS, probably, mostly. The lifestyle changes in young, intelligent people, that know what the body's likely to do if they eat burgers every day. And so we come to the conclusion that there are likely to be more people developing dementia, or more people being tested for dementia. And we don't want to go up the route of some other person who said, well, don't test and then you won't find them. Pre-COVID era. What we do want is more testing, earlier testing, catch the people very early in their journey, so then we can set the right care and treatment and medications and things like that in place for them as soon as possible, so that their journey, like mine, has been quite as smooth as one is possible, let's say. So I have to take a tape measure into classrooms sometimes, and I ask them what age they are, and they tell me what their age is. So if they say, for instance, they're like 9, that's 9 centimetres, I say, well, you're about there on my stick then. And I say, your parents are normally in their 20s or 30s, potentially in their 40s. I said, so they're roughly about there somewhere, up near St. Mr. Street, which is about right. I said, in me, I'm 69, I will be 70 this year, 20, what year is it, 27 or 6, something like that. So Mr. Scoop there, that's where I am, it's exactly 70 centimetres up, and I'm 70 years old. So this is my time stick, so it's a memory stick, a walking stick, and now it's in the schools, it's a time stick for them. It's quite a useful tool to see them understand how old they are and how long along their life they are before they get to our sort of age, puts it into perspective just a tiny bit. Anyway, and how is that relevant to dementia? Let me explain if I can. So somebody without dementia asks you a question and you give them an answer, and then half an hour later they might turn around and say, sorry, I was doing other things. My mind was quite busy. What was that thing you said again? Or answer to the question. So you give it to them and off they go. It's forever embedded then. So that's normal. That's normal aging to mislay a memory that someone's or a piece of information that someone's recently told you. But on a second reminding of it, then normally that produces a better, more solid memory, and it stays there. People that are journeying with dementia, when they ask you a question and you answer it, for those few brief seconds, it has sunk in. They can acknowledge it and say, yeah, thank you for answering that question. So the usual one is, where are we going today? And my wife might say, we're going to see such and such, so I say, okay. So in my head, for those brief few seconds, that's what I'm doing. I can sort of almost go back and plan my day, sort of incorporating that visit to that person. Anyway, as soon as I walk out the room, the dementia steals that information from me and leaves a completely blank space. So it's just as if I've never been told that piece of information. And it's the same with lots of people with dementia. This happens. And their carers and loved ones and that get sick and fed up with when they come back a few minutes later and ask identically the same question as if they've never answered them in the first place, like, you know, and it just pisses people off, like, basically, for want of a better term. It genuinely does. Like, you know, I look at my wife sometimes, I think, oh, I can tell by the look on her face that I've asked that question once before, like, and it could even be like more recently, depending on the rage, you know, that's coming back at me, like, you know, or the disbelief rage, I say. Anyway, bless her. But so if you're a carer or a loved one of somebody with dementia, expect that, please just be a bit more gentle on us. And know that once you've told us something, don't assume that information stays in there for very long anyway. So a couple of Christmases ago, the grandkids thought it'd be quite fun to buy me a mug from Aldi. Only it's not spelled Aldi, it's spelled Aldi. And I thought that's actually quite a revealing gift, like, you know, because it first of all tells me how the people that gave it to me think how they see me, like, as being old, like, you know, which is what I am exactly. So there's no untruth about that. But of course, when I was their age and young, how did I look at older people, like, you know, myself? I used to look at them as being old doddery people that, you know, sitting in chairs stinking of piss, like, you know, and with walking sticks and crutches and forgetting things, like, you know. Little did I know, 60 years later, here I am, like, you know. One of the things I was taking a mickey out of when I was a child, like, you know. So it is there, like, you know, and I know that, and I've been there on both sides of the fence now. But that's life, that's how it is, and I'm okay with it. And of course, this repeated question asking and answering does almost sway into is this person taking a mickey out of me, or is there genuinely something going on, like, you know. The thing is, most people that care or love for somebody who's in a position that they've now got dementia working inside of them, their loved one, carers or person of interest, let's say, in their life, has known them for many years and has probably most likely also known them living without the dementia, and that's the person that they always carry in their mind, their own mind. And so when they're confronted with that same person who used to answer questions and be intelligent and remember things and birthdays and, you know, Valentine's Day, Christmas, all that stuff, suddenly, for no apparent reason, forgets their birthday, forgets to write a Christmas card, forgets to even buy a present, like on certain events, like, you know, wedding anniversaries. That's the big major thing. And it's the cruelty of the disease is that the carers and loved ones feel very let down, and they think they've done something wrong, or they've upset the person with the dementia. It could be somebody who's got the dementia but they're undiagnosed, like, you know, so they don't actually know why the reason is, and which so could in theory lead to, you know, breakups, divorce, all sorts of separations and things like that, where this person has changed so drastically that they think there's something going on, like, you know. So just please be aware of that, get things investigated. If you have got problems, or if you think there's issues with your loved one, even for that, you know, put your personal upset aside and say, look, is there something going on more than just him trying to be nasty and forgot my card, like, or something, like, you know, because it might not be that. He genuinely might not have that information or calendar, birthday in his head anymore. The thing is, there are ways around it. You know, you can put some reminders on his phone or her phone, like, you know, to make them go off. You can drop tips. You can get even family members to children of the one journeying with the dementia and say, look, you know, Dad's got this dementia thing going on. We think that he might forget my birthday, for instance. Like, you know, is it possible you can just help him out? Like, you know, take him to the shops or get something, buy a card for him so he can sign or something like that. There are ways, gentle ways to get over that problem, like, you know, or that issue. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be like a war suddenly erupting in the household. So in age-related memory, we need to talk about the geography, the geography and personal mapping that we have in our heads. All humans have it to sort of semi-locate where they are. You know, when we go into deep tunnels or under the ocean or up in the air or something, we have no clues. We suddenly lose where we are. Well, it's a bit like that with dementia. We got no things to relate to, like, you know. And even if we were on the ground and we go outside of our front door, do we know really which way it is to the cinema or to the Lidl's or the Tesco's or somewhere like that, Asda? Okay, Aldi, I've named all of them now. But to go and get some bit of shopping, like, you know, there will come a point where that person certainly with the particular dementia I have, is I will forget which way to turn, left or right, immediately outside the gate. I just will not know. I'd be struggling to find out which way it is. So with old age, sometimes you can, like somebody living without the dementia, sometimes you can briefly forget where you are. You can drive up a certain road and there's cars parked in a different way maybe or something, and you think, oh crikey, where am I, like, you know, and drive to the end of the road and suddenly it all comes back, like, but your general map of where you are locally comes back to you, like, you know. What you have to remember is with dementia, that road system's no longer there. There's not even a map in the head to know which direction you go after going up the road, like, you know. Like I live in Clevedon, which has got a pier. I think I could probably manage to guide myself from the house to where the pier is at the moment. But I know there will come a time, and the family also knows this, there will come a time when I won't remember which way to go. And so if in a few months' time or a few years' time or whatever that I do get lost, go out of the front door to go somewhere and get lost, you know, just simply don't know where I am and don't know how to get where I want to go, then on my stick at the moment I've got one of these air tags. You can have any of them. There's all different types, like for Android phones and things like that, and this means of course that if I'm gone for like 2 or 3 hours or so and I'm supposed to only go down to the local shop and back, which is literally half an hour away, then Bryony can go on her phone and track me, or well, as I said before, she can track where my stick is, which I might have got hooked up on somebody's bicycle and be on his way up to Manchester on M4. But anyway, that'll shock her a bit, wouldn't it? but you get the drift of it. Like, so early on in the journey, it's probably safe to get the person who's got journeying with the dementia used to carrying one of these, either on keys, house keys or something, or attach it to one of his pairs of trousers or a belt or something, sew it into his pocket somehow, you know, of his favourite jacket which he always wears out. And for me, because of my spine issues, I can't go anywhere much without this stick anyway, so this is always with me. So they decided to put a tag on my stick, like, you know. There is another thing around the Bristol Avon area called the Herbert Protocol, and that's to do with this one, this little yellow thing. So if I were to get lost and my wife Bryony
chooses not to come and get me, then the police or the fire brigade or the Coast Guard can scan this little thing here, and it'll come up with her phone number, and hopefully they'll persuade her that it would be a good thing to come and get me. So there is that as well. So while we're on the subject of geography and maps and that, it's likely that the person journeying with dementia, me and others, our maps get smaller and smaller. So we may not remember how to get around in our own city or town, places where we used to have a map already. We knew where certain areas of the town was, like, you know, where the cinema was, where this is, where that is. And then we might also begin to lose or struggle with the map of our own house, really locally, that where we live in our house. So when we wake up in the morning, for instance, or even through the night, and we believe it's turn right for the toilet, we might actually be walking into the kitchen. It might be that we're in the lounge and we need to go to bed, and we end up in, you know, again in a kitchen, or even going out through the front door, like, you know, looking for the bedroom, like, you know. It is literally, that's what happens, like, you know. So again, some sort of signage or low lighting on a night time, plugged in, you know, little sensor light things that you can plug in, low lighting, so that it's only to help, like, you know, it's not guaranteed to get the person to the right place, but it's indicators, signage, you know, pointing them in to help them get into the right place. Again, if you're caring for somebody but you're not living with them, maybe when you look at things like that or consider things like that, you might be able to suggest that they buy some lights and you can plug them in for them and help, like, in that way, or big signs or something. Or put a sign of the wardrobe on the wardrobe door if it's similar to other doors, like, you know. In the cupboards in the kitchen, like, you know, put just big signs on, or photographs of pots and pans, and said, not that we should be cooking with hot stuff by then, but do you know what I mean? The fridge, even, you know, if it's one of those hidden fridges in a fitted kitchen or something, you know, put a picture of food or fruit, you know, easy meals or whatever it is, on the milk or something, like milk bottle on the front of the door, like, you know, just go for it, like, you know, don't be worried about protecting everything, because you're actually protecting the person, which is more important than a door, for instance.
I've lost particularly is calendar, my diary, the list of all the days and months and years and things like that, it's gone, like, you know. With age, you might forget that initially, but you can find out, like, you know, with dementia, you forget what year you're in, for instance. I mean, I learn every time I see the kids or the students, like, you know, I say to them, what day is it, like, you know, what month are we in, what year is it, you know. I know we got a king because I met him when I was at school, but, well, when he wasn't a king then, he was a prince, like, broke his umbrella with a bayonet. Yeah, he said, "Oh, we don't put people in the tower for things like that anymore." Yeah, so I was lucky. Yeah, he visited the place next to our school, and I had a combined cadet force thing. So I was in the army thing, so I had this big rifle with a bayonet on it. Anyway, it was raining, so he got out of his car, Charles, bent over to say hello, and my bayonet went right up through his flipping umbrella. Yeah, so see, that is an emotional memory, because there was fear in it, there was jeopardy, like, you know, there was also relief and joy, so it was a whole memory that hopefully will stay with me till whenever, like, you know. But when it was, what day it was, I've got no idea, like, you know. I probably could work it out because I was at school, like, in early 1970s, 72, 73 maybe, that sort of age. I think I was 15, 16 or something. Again, don't know for sure. If I didn't have dementia, I would know exactly what day that was, because I'd met the king, the day I met the king. That would be embedded in my brain, I just don't know. Most people that are diagnosed with dementia are 65 years or older. If unfortunately, like me, we're diagnosed before that cut-off point, then you're classed as young onset dementia. That's one of the tiny little slivers of silver in my dementia, because I can call myself young onset, but we'll use the word young. Anyway, after 65, every 5 years, your chances of developing dementia doubles. In our late 80s and 90s, then it's down to like 3 in 1 chance. So 1 out of every 3 people over 90 in the UK today has some form of MCI or dementia, unfortunately. And we know that the population is getting older due to the NHS, probably, mostly, the lifestyle changes in young, intelligent people, that know what the body is likely to do if they eat burgers every day. And so we come to the conclusion that there are likely to be more people developing dementia, or more people being tested for dementia. And we don't want to go up the route of some other person who said, well, don't test and then you won't find them. Pre-COVID era. What we do want is more testing, earlier testing, catch the people very early in their journey, so then we can set the right care and treatment and medications and things like that in place for them as soon as possible, so that their journey, like mine, has been quite as smooth as one is possible, let's say. I've just put a little addition in here, and this is why we are trying. The BDAA in Bristol is a group of people led by Tony Hall, who's trying to make Bristol the first dementia-friendly city completely. Massive task, huge task. Might not be done for decades even, but he's still going to do it. And one of his main things, main gripes is that buildings, public buildings that anyone can go into, don't have proper signage, good signage, So, for instance, I went swimming. I go swimming locally in a swimming pool, and when I'm in the changing rooms, there seems to be the signage which says exit, and you go down there and you go into the pool. So that's the exit to the pool. That's in their mind. That's what they think they should put up there. But the other door that goes back out to the reception after you've changed and got dressed and everything, it's got no sign on it at all. And I have raised this with them 2 or 3 times, not their fault, the people working there or anything like that, but it's just an inherent, culture, if you like, of signage. Nobody understands that people with dementia. So that's why you see these things, people trying to make buildings dementia friendly. That's what they're trying to do, to stop me getting dressed and then trying to go back out into the pool again fully dressed. Yeah, it's a bit odd sometimes, but I've been there, and I just turn around and come back out and go through the other door, which has got nothing on it, and I know I'm going to the reception.
It also jogged my thoughts a bit about people that are young at the moment, and if you are young and you're watching this, in your 20s or 30s, 40s even, you still do have a chance to not build up an immunity to dementia, but to do things in your life that would change your chances of developing dementia. There are 14 definite steps or things you can do with data sitting behind them that proves without question that you can guide your future self away from developing dementia. it might only be a 30%, but for me 30% is a huge less of a risk, like, you know, of developing this thing. I wish I'd have known. I probably would have looked at some of the things, if not all of them. None of them is very difficult, you know. They're challenging, let's say, for people that have lifestyles like I used to have, which was very wayward and cavalier to my own body, right? But if you're the type that are more serious about living a bit longer and living a clean life without dementia, you know, being smeared all over your thoughts, then look at the next video that I'm doing, because I categorize each of the 14 things or steps, and I give facts of why, the reasoning that sits behind why each one of those individually helps steer you away by a small percentage away from developing dementia, or your brain developing dementia later in your life. Yeah, I hope you watch it, because that's probably the most interesting one for you young guys to watch. So I hope you have enjoyed this one and you can take something away from it. I know it's a bit long, they're all about half an hour long, I think it's something, but it's the most important one, I think, for younger viewers, that's people under the age of 50, will find the next one extremely interesting. And they use it in Australia, and the NHS in Australia, they use it as a standard thing, and we're trying to introduce it into the NHS in the United Kingdom. It's a bit of a struggle because of obviously constraints of finance and support and funding and things like that, but we'll just keep trying. Anyway, you can learn about it from here on my next video. The 14th, I can't remember what it's called yet, but anyway, it is what it is. Okay, bye.